Welcome back, everybody, and it's Rogaway here for another web design tutorial. And I know how excited you guys are about that, but this is the last web design tutorial that we are going to do. And arguably, if you're following through this, it is going to be the most complicated. However, it gives us the most ability to do amazing things with our websites, and that is CSS. It stands for Cascading Style Sheets, which may not mean a lot to you guys, but it's a very, very powerful addition to our HTML websites. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up the index HTML in the folder here, and you're going to see that we've got this page that is roughly built for us. It's about Stranger Things. And you'll see that it's very, very basic. It's got a picture, it's got the logo, it's got the text. It's very basic. But what we're going to do in this particular tutorial is we are going to style this website entirely with CSS. Okay, so all the stuff I showed you about like H1s and font tags and all that good stuff, it's still useful stuff. But we're going to go beyond that with CSS. The way that I want to sort of describe what CSS is, it's kind of like the boss of HTML. It overrides the tags and lets us put our own sort of overrides in to make our website look that much cooler. All right. So you'll notice that this file is different. You notice that it is different than our other files. It contains this one line right here that is telling us that it is linking to a style sheet. The file's text is CSS and the file name is style.css. And in that folder, if you go back to that folder, I think I have it here, you will see there's the index file we opened, but there's this style CSS file. And to access that file, Dreamweaver is smart enough to put a little tab here right next to source code so we can jump to the CSS file. And so just to clarify, when we jump over to the CSS file, what we're doing is we are editing a separate file, but both of those files combined make our website look amazing, or edit or basically modify our website. Okay, so source code, HTML, stuff that we've already learned, CSS, design, and making it look good. All right, so that's out of the way. Let's actually start doing this. And it's going to be kind of a long tutorial, so I want to get through it quickly. CSS is a slightly different format than HTML. The tags look a little different. I would argue that it's more clear as to what the code is doing. It's very obvious sort of what the script is doing. But we're going to jump over, like I said, to the CSS file. We're going to put in our first, if you want to call it a tag, it's not really a tag, it's a script. So we are going to put a star like that. And you'll find that above the 8, the number 8. And what a star means is that you are affecting everything on the page. So a star means like everything, all of it. And in CSS, you put a space and you open a curly bracket, just like back when we were doing ActionScript coding. So if we go into this area, I just added some spaces there. If we go into this area between, we can start adding things between the brackets. Okay? For example, because we're using a star, anything we change here is going to affect everything on the page. So let's say we wanted the fonts to change for the whole entire page. We could do this. Font-family, okay, colon. Now look at this. It gives us these nice little presets for common fonts that computers have, which is really nice. I'm going to go custom. I'm going to put Helvetica. Okay, Helvetica. And in case somebody's on a PC, I'm going to press comma Arial. I'm going to put a semicolon at the end. Okay. Now you're not going to see anything change because CSS is a little different than HTML. Because it's a separate file, the only way we're going to actually see our changes on the browser view is if we save our CSS file. So we can do Command S. Okay, and that saves it. And if I click up here, you will notice that everything has changed to Helvetica or Arial, depending on what we have in the computer. Because, again, the CSS file is overriding everything, and this star is telling it to affect everything on the page. And so the first thing we've done is our font families. Now everything updates. And you notice that it still keeps the formatting for the H1 and the different, this is a paragraph tag. Still keeps all that formatting, but it changed the fonts for us, which is really nice. Let's add another one. Let's put font size, colon, 15 pixels, px, semicolon. Now you notice that, and it did update automatically there without saving, which is cool. It changed everything to 15 pixels. And the cool thing about CSS that you cannot do with HTML is you can put any number in here. I put like 900. And they're going to be, they're so huge you can't even see them. Okay, I don't even know if there is a limit. But I'm going to go back to 15. Okay, because that's going to work for this. I'm going to scroll back down so you can see what I'm doing here. Let's say we wanted all the text moved to the center. Now, in the past, if we used HTML, we use a center tag, but CSS is so much easier. We just do this, text, align, colon, center. Boom, everything goes to the center. See how easy that is? All right, now again, because we're in the star tag here, star area, we are affecting everything on the page. So there you go. Next, let's change all of the color. No, you know what? Maybe let's not do that just yet, because then we won't see what we're doing. Let's not do that yet. So as you can see, really quickly, we were able to adjust some of our text. Really quickly, it adjusted it from those settings. So you can see how the CSS is working. I'm just going to hit Command S just to save. And I'm going to go down to the next line here. Now, this is where things get a little weird, because, like I said, CSS can actually override any tag we want. So if we want to override one of the tags in our HTML document, we'd have to look for the one that we want to manipulate. Let's say we're going to manipulate the body. Okay. Now remember, when we did it with HTML to change the background image, we used the attribute background equals. In CSS, it's a little different, but we have way more control over it. So when we want to manipulate a tag specifically, we put the name of the tag we want to manipulate. So in this case, body. Okay. And we're going to put a curly bracket because now we are affecting the body tag. And every time you do this, you're going to have different options because every tag has its own sort of attributes. Let's do this. We're gonna put a background picture in there. We're going to put background dash image colon, and this is where it's a little different. It's not like in HTML where you'd put like source or whatever. In this case, you're going to put URL. And you're going to put a round bracket, and then you're going to see that it's going to find pictures that are in that folder. So we're going to use background JPEG, and we're going to just put a semicolon. Now, you'll see that it has placed the picture in the background, and it by default, oh no, it doesn't stretch yet. We're gonna set that, but it just kind of placed it in there, and then it tiles. It's pretty much the same as what HTML does. But you notice that the text is pretty much impossible to read. It's so difficult over that background. So let's go back into the star area up here. This is actually what I was going to do before, but I wanted to show you this first to see why we were going to do it. We're going to go after text align. We're going to put color white. Boom. There it goes. Okay, all the text is now white in one shot. Nice. Let's go back down to this body. And again, I just want to show you some of the cool things you can do to manipulate tags that you cannot do with HTML. Let's say we want to change the background size. Okay, so background dash size. And we're going to put cover, which means that the background will cover the available space that we have for this website. So you see what it did? It scaled the image up and it covered the whole entire background of the site. So that's cool. Let's do another one. Let's say, you see how right now when we scroll, the background moves with the page? Let's say we didn't want that. Let's say we wanted the background locked in place. Background dash attachment. And guys, honestly, this is really easy once you get the hang of it. Fixed. Okay, so it's fixed. And now look at this. When you scroll, now the background doesn't move. It is locked in. Pretty cool. And let's do one last thing. We can change the way the background is positioned. There's a lot more we can do, but this is the ones that I want to show you guys because I think these are useful to you. Background dash position. And let's go with centered. Semicolon. Always never forget your semicolons. Okay? And so now the background is centered across our view. You can see how it changes if I go like top, for example. See, now it's lined up to the top of the image. Okay, I like centered. It kind of makes sure it's always in the center. Now, I mentioned this before to you guys, and I don't know if you remember or not, but, you know, right now we're looking at it on a computer. So, of course, it's going to look fine, and it's going to do all this just great. But if you remember with HTML, one of the limitations of HTML is if you, let's say you looked at it on a phone, the background would not change size. With CSS, if I go and like change my browser size, look at that. The background scales automatically so that no matter what size I'm looking at the website, it's going to scale automatically. Okay, so if I'm looking at it on a mobile device versus on my computer, it's going to look right no matter how I'm looking at it. Let's do another minor little thing. This is just something that I want to add. We're going to add a customization to the HTML tag. And we're going to put a comma for the body tag. Now you might be wondering, well, why didn't we just add this in body? Well, if you wanted to apply to multiple tags, you can put a comma and you can put multiple things in one CSS like declaration, okay? And so in this case, for the HTML and the body, we want to make sure that this page is fitting. So we're going to put width 100%. Okay. You won't see a huge difference, but what this is going to do is going to make sure that this page always fits in the width and height 100% of the browser. Okay, so it's going to make sure that it never has a border or anything weird as you're looking at it, all right? And those are the types of things that could really sort of mess up the user experience as they're looking at your page. Okay, so let's look at manipulating the H1 tag. Now you notice that the H1 tag became small like the rest of the text because back up here we told it that all fonts are going to be 15 pixels. But that doesn't make sense because if we had a title, we wouldn't want the title to be 15 pixels. So down under here, we're going to put H1 because we are going to manipulate the H1 specifically. And we're going to do curly brackets. It's very repetitive. Font dash size. And maybe for headings, we want it to be 30 pixels. So guys, there it goes. The thing that's cool about this is as long as you got a CSS file in place, every single time you use an H1 tag or every single time you create some sort of text, it's smart enough to know that the CSS file is overriding the HTML, and that means every time you use H1, it's going to automatically go to whatever you have set here, which is really cool, I think, because again, it allows you a lot more flexibility with things that you can do. Okay, let's start getting into some cool stuff, some fancy stuff. Now again, my version of fancy and cool is probably different than yours. I'm a nerd, so this is cool to me. We're gonna affect the paragraph. Now this is the P tag. This is all this text that I'm highlighting here. If you click it, well, what happened? I don't even know what happened. I double clicked it or something. Okay, so this text, the P text, the paragraph text right there, we're going to affect that. So to start, I'm going to put a P because we want to affect just the paragraph. Now, one thing I noticed that I don't like is that the text goes right to the edge. It looks bad. So we're going to put a margin dash left, so on the left side. And let's set it to 70 pixels. And you see how the text moves away on the left-hand side? You see this little gap that appeared? That's what we did. And then we're going to do one on the right as well. Margin right, colon, 70 pixels. And now it will move. It will move. What? It should have moved, okay? I don't know why it's not showing, but it should have moved, okay? Just trust me. I'm sure it moved. Oh, I spelled margin wrong. That's right. I put margin, like margarine. There we go. We got it. See, spell it. I did that on purpose just to show you. You got to always check your spelling, okay? Yeah, right. One thing you'll notice is that the text is hard to read. The light areas are really hard to read over the light areas. The dark areas are easy because it's white on like a dark background. But one cool thing about CSS is you could do things like shadows and like transparent backgrounds and all sorts of cool stuff you couldn't do with HTML. So let's do a shadow. And like I said, most of the stuff in CSS is pretty self-explanatory once you know what they're doing. So I'm going to put text dash shadow. And this is a tricky little script here that we're going to put in, okay? This is a tricky little code. First of all, it wants to know how far is the shadow going to move in the left and right. We're going to put 0 pixels. We're going to basically say it's right behind on the left and right. And then it's going to say how much does the shadow move. So you got to put a space. How much does the shadow move top to bottom? So I'm going to put 0 pixels. Then it wants to know is how much blur do you want the shadow to have. So I'm going to put 5 pixels. And then it wants to know what color the shadow is. I'm going to put black and then a semicolon. And now if you look, I don't know if you can see it, there is now a very subtle shadow underneath. Now check it out, just to show you what these were doing. Let's say I change the second 0 here to a 5. You will now see that it moves down 5 pixels, okay? And same with this one. If I put in 5, then it moves to the right 5 pixels. All right, you can also use negative numbers. I can put -5 and it'll be on the left-hand side. Okay, so you can play around. It's kind of fun. But I like having it directly behind with a little bit of a blur, and black is good because now that is easy to read no matter what display we're looking at. All right, so you can kind of see how you can really change the way things look with CSS, all right? And we're not done yet. We're still going to add a few more things. Now, it looks weird that the title doesn't have the shadow, at least to me. So let's do this. In the H1, where we had that, we can basically just copy this. Yeah, you know what? Let's just copy this line here. Copy. Paste it in. Boop. And now our heading has a shadow as well. Very nice. All right, let's get into some other cool things. Now, there's so much to do with CSS that I can't possibly show it all to you in one tutorial. So you're just going to have to experiment and look up some of this stuff on your own, hopefully. And maybe you'll, make the next most amazing website that exists out there or something. Anyways, let's say we want to adjust our images. So these are our 2 images. And I'm just going to save. I'm going to Command S. Whoops. One sec. Sorry. Cancel. I'm going to hit here. Save. One thing you'll notice when you use an image, and you might remember this from when we were doing the images, those are inside of an IMG tag, which means in our source CSS, style CSS, we're going to put an IMG, curly bracket. And here's some cool things you can do with pictures. So first of all, you can round the edges of the picture. We can go border, radius. You can use this with a lot of things. let's set it to 50 pixels. And you'll see that the corner's round on that picture, so it's not just a square rectangle. It now has rounded edges. Okay. You'll notice you can't see it on this one because it's a PNG. You can see it a little bit at the top of the Stranger Things logo there. But we're gonna do something with that later. Let's say we wanted a border on this picture. Okay, actually it's gonna do it to both, but I'll show you how to fix that after. Let's go like this. Let's go border, 5 pixels. Now there's a lot of different types of borders you can do, like thick, thin, dashed, medium. I'm gonna just go solid, which just means a line. And then let's give it a color, maybe black. Boop. So now you can see that there's a black outline. But look how dumb this looks. You see this here? It does it to both because they're both using the IMG tag. All right, and that's going to lead us to our next little issue that we can kind of work around. Before we move on, we're going to put a shadow behind the pictures as well. So for that, because it's not text, we have to use box shadow. It's the same settings as the other one, like we'd go 0 pixels, 0 pixels, then how much blur. I'm going to go 10 pixels, go bigger blur on this one, then black again. Now again, you can experiment with what you want to do. Now you see this nice shadow on the picture. But look how dumb that looks. That one looks really, really bad. And that's because with CSS, when you're adding code to a picture or a tag, once you've added it, there's no changing it. All right, because it adds it to both. However, they added a very cool little feature. And so let's just go a little further down. That feature is classes. So with classes, you can make custom classes for whatever you want. And the way you define a class is with a period. So we put period. We could give it any name we want. I'm going to say, I'm going to call this the logo. Actually, no, that doesn't make any sense. I'm going to say, I'll just call it an image. Okay. So the name can be anything you want. And within a class, you do the same curly bracket thing, but now what you're doing is you are giving it custom attributes. Okay, so basically all of this that we just added to the image tag, we only want it on this picture. So what we're going to do here, I hope I don't confuse you guys, but we're going to actually take this and we're going to cut it out of there. Okay, so just right click, cut, or Command X, whatever, get it out of there, and instead put it in here. Okay, and you can actually just wipe this out. Okay, and you notice that both pictures went back to very basic square edges, no shadow, no border, nothing. To use a class, what you need to do, first of all, we got to save. So I just press Command S. Go back to your source code and find which object you want it to apply to. In this case, it's the screenshot. We don't want it to apply to the logo. We want it to apply to the screenshot. So what you do is after the IMG tag, you put class equals quotations image, which is the name we gave it. And that's how you do it. Now, if you look, this picture now has all of those attributes from our CSS, but this one doesn't, because this image is part of a class and this one isn't. Classes are super powerful. You can make classes for everything and only use them when you want to use them. And so in this case, you can see that this picture is custom, whereas that one is just the default. All right, that works pretty well. I think we're going to do one last thing. I don't want to spend too much time confusing you guys. Again, I hope some of you will actually apply this to your websites. It'd be great for you to actually put this in. But let me show you one other thing that is cool. And we're going to talk a little bit about transparency. And so there's a couple different ways you can use transparency. So if you want something to be like see-through, And again, you can't do that with HTML, obviously. And pretty much none of this you can't do with HTML. I don't know why I'm getting this weird glitch. Let's say we want this picture to be transparent. I don't know why. Now remember, it's part of this class image, so we're going to go to our CSS. The first way to make things transparent is quite simple. You just go into that class. We're going to put a line here. You just put an opacity modifier. And the way this works is 1 is completely opaque, like exactly the same as usual. And then anything down from that, like 0.9, is 90% opaque. You just barely see through it. 0.5 would be 50% opaque. You see now it's very transparent. You know, and 0.2 would be 20%. You get the idea. You could put like actual like numbers like 25%. But don't forget the 0 before, because it's out of 1. So, you know, 1 being 100 and then all of these like 80%, 70%. You get the idea. Anyways, so it's a percentage. And that's one way of doing opacity, or sorry, that's one way of doing transparency really easily if you want. Now again, in this case, it looks weird to have that picture kind of see-through. I'll leave it. It's just a tutorial. But another way you can do it, which might actually be useful, is like, let's say in this paragraph text, you want it to have like a bit of a transparent background, maybe. Here's how you could do that. Back up in the P tag category here, we're going to go and add a line here. And this one's going to be background dash color. Okay. And this is a weird attribute, so you have to kind of pay attention. It's going to be called RGBA. Okay? So red, green, and blue, and A is the alpha, or the transparency. So what you could do here is you could pick a color, and then you could pick how transparent you want it to be. This is RGBA, you can see it right here, and it's filling this in automatically. So these values are red, green, and blue values, and you can see they change as we pick our color. And this last one here, so this is, let me just show you. This is red, red, green, blue, and then the comma 0.73 is how transparent it is. Just like opacity. So let's say we wanted a 75%, right? So there's 75, 75% blue. And now we just click back in here. You know, notice what it does is it creates a blue background with 75% opacity. All right. And if we don't like that, we can wipe it out again. Just get rid of it and do it again, right? Like maybe we want black. We'll do black with like maybe an 80% opacity. Boom. There it is. You can kind of see through it a little bit, but it's still pretty dark, so you can see it. Another thing that might look good or better is you'll see that the text goes right to the edge of the box when you use background color, which looks bad. You might remember this from our tables tutorial. What you could do is you could put padding, and you could put like, let's say 10 pixels. And now you'll see that the text moves in. It creates a little padding on the edges so that it's not right to the edge. All right. And you can see now, guys, that I'm going to save this. I am going to actually open this with a browser. Okay, so I'm going to save this. I'm going to go to my index. I'm going to save that as well. So Command S on both of these. And let me show you, if I go to a browser, it looks pretty good. All right, I'm not saying it looks amazing, but look at that. You see when I scale how things adjust automatically? So you can pretty much guarantee that if you look at this on a phone, it's going to still look pretty decent. All right, it may not be perfect, but it's going to scale down to a nice size. And the real takeaway from this for you guys to understand is that CSS is really powerful. There's a lot you can do with CSS, and you can make your websites way, way, way better using it. And I would say nowadays it is standard. If you're going to make a custom website, you pretty much have to use CSS. All right, you can't get away with just making an HTML site because that kind of died in the late 90s. All right, so yeah, that's where I want to leave it today. Again, that's our last web design tutorial. Next year, if you're back, we get more advanced than that. But anyways, thanks for watching. I'll talk to you next time.